PTV, oberoende, piratistisk media, skapad och finansierad av tittarna.
Det är klart att de ser friska och glada ut, som de laddar upp med vitaminer. Apelsiner, paprika, vitkål. Sunt och vettigt. Det där borde jag själv gå in för.
PTV, av stat har jävlar, för stat har jävlar.
Yeah. Hello, everyone, and welcome to, I guess another episode of PTV Global that we are kind of still naming and slowly bringing back with Maja's help. Hello, Maja.
Hello. Good evening, everyone.
I should also make sure that you're actually in the shot. Hang on. Let me see. There we go. Kind of, maybe. Ah, that's it. That's more a little bit like it. At least it's very red. Perfect. Is it loading? Kind of. Yes, it's loading. Great success. Perfect. So, I mean, we've developed, or rather, I think you've kind of also developed the idea for a little bit of what we're gonna do. Which should we start with that? What it is, kind of the goal that we have? What's the point? What are we trying to achieve? Like global domination, media domination.
Well, eventually that, I guess. But we're anti-monopoly here, so we don't want total world domination. So we want more of
partial
pirate presence at least, and maybe more of a Nordic presence, more of a European presence.
Yeah.
In the media field.
Yeah, one of the things that we noticed, and it's hard. That's kind of the thing, and we really need your help there, because the reality is that the EU thinks the things that are going on in EU is super important for us, but generally the news are getting no print whatsoever, or extremely little print, and it's just not. It's like it's just not. No one even talks about it, despite EU being so important. Like we were just talking about before, that the EU is basically solidifying our regeringens, how do you say that? The regeringens power against the National Assembly and stuff like that. It has huge implications for just the internal politics of EU, let alone all of the actual stuff that is going on there, all of the laws. All of the things that are kind of all of the weird news that coming from that we just don't know about, like most people don't know about. So the goal is to kind of make that also fun and entertaining. We'll try, but it is quite interesting. But we also need your help.
The media is just not interested in what goes on in the EU, like in Europe in general, not just the EU, not just EU politics. For EU politics, they have the excuse of it being like boring and nobody understanding what's going on. And well, it's not like it's the media's job to make these things understandable and interesting to the general public or anything. So I guess the media takes a lot of blame.
Yeah.
The only way to fix that is to make media that actually pays attention. And yeah, a clear thing, something that probably comes up in PTV programming as well, is that there's a lot of, like, we are constantly overshadowed by like what goes on in the US for good reasons in many cases, but still, like, even like the culture, all the debates, all the discourse is being like imported in real time. And the result is that most of us know more about what's going on in the US, even in like US domestic politics, than what's going on even sometimes for some people in our own countries or neighboring countries, or the EU, which is like more directly relevant for us than the US is.
Yeah, I mean, it has huge. I mean, just the things we're going to talk about today has huge implications. They really do. They would have huge implications for us even if there was no EU. You know, even though a lot of them are actually linked to that. Like it matters to us, but it's I don't know. Why do you think it is that it's just like the reporting is so bad on these issues? Are they that complex? I think in a way maybe they are a little bit complex.
Yeah, they are complex. Like, kind of ties into the very common accusations of the EU being like purposefully opaque and overly bureaucratic and technocratic, like it being the institutions being constructed in such a way that like regular people don't have a chance of actually understanding or keeping track of what's going on. And like, I mean, these aren't empty accusations, like there's certainly a basis for them. But still, like, it's still not a reason not to try. And that's, the media just, they have many excuses. Like there's the bits about it being complex and feeling far away for people, and people just not being interested. Like, you know, this just doesn't get clicks excuse that many commercial media tend to go for. And yeah, they just have many excuses.
Yeah, and I mean, like one of these
Better
biggest,
than others.
like one of the biggest questions, you know, which we get a lot, like Sveriges questions, you know, like oh the immigration, la da 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 da. This is like why that's if we're serious about trying to actually solve the next immigration crisis, EU is the only kind of place where we can actually start thinking about solving that. Gotta have to admit, it sounds a little bit. It's almost impossible given that we have so many right-wing countries who are just completely. It's like the municipalities in Sweden. It's just it's so populist. But if we're gonna do anything, we have to know what sort of rules do we have to abide by? What sort of rules can be broken? You know, if you necessarily want to break them, but also, you know, how can we cooperate with other countries to make sure you know, to be prepared for the next crisis, because there is gonna be one, particularly if EU is gonna keep supporting NATO the way it is currently. I mean, it's just a matter of time before the next major bombing starts occurring in US leads, and we get the next type of immigration crisis. Or, you know, just to not turn all of us into super sad people here. You know, I'm not even talking about the environmental issues.
Exactly. I was going to say, I think the environment is going to be a bigger issue than the next war.
Yeah, we don't even need to have the US.
Yeah, we can do
another bombing run, or like Russia going on another bombing run in the Middle East. Like the climate is going to take care of that.
Yeah. But it's just, I think it's just one of these. It's weird. It's weird to see, and it's also like there's so many, like the Danish suggestion. Yes, we can start off in that, which has been lauded here. You know, like everyone loves it here in Sweden on the right, where they have decided to move their immigration office, essentially asyl. What do you call that? Gee, I really need to learn a lot of words in English, I feel like. Anyway, they're going to move their office to some unspecified country in Africa, they say. I mean, they're breaking, like, I mean, it's just completely populist, unless they...
Are they serious? Like, unspecified country in Africa?
Yeah.
Is that their plan? Like,
yeah,
some country in Africa? Just
yeah,
like a hand wave?
They haven't decided which one yet. But the idea is that they're going to fly anyone who comes to their border there, and they're going to have to apply there, and that will actually make them a refugee of that African country and not Denmark. That's the suggestion that the Social Democrats has in Denmark.
Social Democrats.
The problem again here is if you don't really understand how EU laws and obligations work, you may think that that's actually possible, but it's not. And not only EU, there is several international laws that you're breaking. Now, can you break those laws? Some I think you can bend a bit, but others you can't. Or rather, you're gonna have loads of problems. It's gonna be in the, you're gonna go to the court, the European court, and they're gonna say no. And they've said no to things like this before. And that's gonna be final. That's actually final in those types of questions. The issue is that the EU is generally toothless in a lot of these situations, but when it comes to the court and those things, it's pretty final. It's like, it's not. So I think it's just a completely populist suggestion. If they do so, if they force it, that means leaving the European Union, and that also means that if there is a big flood of immigrants at some point, you have no one to, when they come knocking on your border, you can't say, you have nothing to say. What are you going to do? You're going to shoot them? You can't argue. You can't tell EU they're not. We don't care. They are coming to your country. Like, what are you going to do? It's really ridiculous to think that this is something that we, as small European countries, can actually solve by ourselves. Particularly Nordic countries that has extremely little that has very little power, so to speak, on our own. Anyhow, let's start with this one. I hope. Wait.
I mean, just
that's actually not what I wanted to start
to add to the previous one. Like, we've seen the kind of spite, the levels of spite the EU is capable of when someone wants to actually like start breaking the rules or starts the process to leave the EU. We've seen that with the UK. So if Denmark starts to like separate themselves from the normal procedures that are agreed upon in the EU, like there is nothing stopping the EU from just like, yeah, as you said, throwing up their hands and like say letting people just flow through. That's what Russia does for Finland right now. Like, we don't have much of a like we have the Baltic Sea separating us from like continental Europe, but we still got plenty of refugees back in 2015, partly because Russia just purposefully lets people walk through if they say that they're on the way to an EU country. Like, it's like this is what Russia obviously does. It's just like a mission to broadly like destabilize the EU.
I mean,
any way possible. But like, I mean, we've seen the kind of games that the EU started playing with the UK. Like, it was a very efficient way to scare any current member states that might have been considering some kind of not necessarily a Brexit thing, but any kind of rebellion.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a purely populist kind of thing to say, and sometimes I'm wondering if that's the right way to go. I mean, just please the right-wing maniacs. They're not going to make any research on what's feasible or possible. Just just make something up and tell them you're going to do it, and then say, "Oh, we couldn't do it." But we will do this or whatever. I mean, it's ridiculous how much praise Denmark has gotten for that, which is, again, just some basic understanding of EU, and you'd be like, oh yeah, that's not going to happen. Denmark can't really leave. Anyhow, let's start with this. Google fined, that's a number, 220 million in France over advertising abuse. What's this? What's this about?
I think it's antitrust. So Google has this monopoly or near monopoly in advertising business. They've shared it with Facebook in many parts of the world for quite a bit, but Facebook has probably been getting like they were the first to get like major flack over these kinds of abuses. So it could be that the like relative portion has been like getting smaller. But now, and obviously Google was the original player, the going for a monopoly on online advertising. So this is a fairly big deal, I think. Like the whole reason that big tech has gotten so big in the past 10, 15 years is that national governments they basically stopped executing or like using the existing antitrust law to contain the technology firms.
Yeah.
So this is kind of the first steps that we are seeing towards actually doing something about it, about the problematic giants.
Yeah, it's really positive to see that individual countries are starting to do this. Now, 200 million isn't really gonna even. I'm not sure it's even. Maybe it's like a mosquito. It's annoying. Maybe annoying enough. Technology, but it's worth to say here, like the right here. Well, I can tell. Technology giant Google has been fined 220 million euro by French authorities for abusing its advertising power. France competition watchdog said Google has been promoting its own online advertising services to the detriment of rivals. It found that Google's ad management platform for large publishers, Google Ad Manager, favored the company's own online ad marketplace, Google AdX. Google said it would make changes to its advertising business. The US tech giant has agreed to make it easier for publishers to use its data and tools. We will be testing and developing these changes over coming months before rolling them out more broadly, including some globally. The interesting thing here, though, is what they write in the following sections, because this is not the first time that Google has been fined for the exact same thing, and it's been fined a lot more. Google was fined 1.49 billion by the EU for blocking rival online search advertisers in 2019. It was also fined 50 million by the French data regulator CNYL for a breach of the EU's data protocol rules. I guess that's a little bit different. The first one, though, is incredibly similar. And I'd guess that they've made some small changes, but don't really want to comply. The EU Competition Authority fined the company a record 4.34 billion in 2008 for using its popular Android mobile operating system to block rivals. That followed a 2.42 billion fine for hindering rivals of shopping comparison websites. I mean, there's just lots of these. What I find interesting here is that this is actually quite these are a sizable amount of money, though, that has been fined. And it's a little bit disturbing because they are a part of the same types of laws that are in place in EU. It's a little bit disturbing to see that they don't try to conform with the laws. Like, it shows that even this $4.32 billion fine doesn't make them rethink, oh, maybe we should look at all of these laws and actually try to follow them.
Yeah, they're just willing to offend and wait until they get slapped.
Yeah. Because that's
the title of the stream tonight, actually.
Yeah. Slapped.
France is getting slapped. France is also slapping around. We happen to get like at least 3 headlines.
Yeah.
Concerning France tonight.
Slapping, France. Crazy French people. Kenta Clawfinger, our old-time followers, he loves French people. That's his favorite. France in general, I guess.
There was a... You missed a paragraph. The decision to sanction Google is of particular significance because it's the first decision in the world focusing on the complex algorithmic auction processes on which the online ad business relies. So they want transparency.
Yeah.
And they're actually sort of wading into the technological side of these questions
That's true.
Mostly left alone, and that's sort of what's given that's how the giants have been arguing their case, that like this new technology, nobody, like no legislators or even most of the experts even properly understand this. Like, we are the only ones who actually get how these things work, and you should be like getting involved too much or like disturbing something you don't understand. Like, tech is this new tech or is something like its own thing, something completely new that isn't like beholden to any old rules or practices or principles. This is what they've been arguing for a long time, and it's worked for them for a long time. So it's significant that they're actually trying to.
I mean, it's really good
to, pay attention to that, and they've stopped buying their bullshit on that.
Yeah. I mean, this essentially is a first step on starting to look at what companies will always say, oh, that's our intellectual property. You can't look at our algorithms. You can't find out what we're doing. And it's super important. And we talk about that often. I mean, I'd prefer to see it so that all of these algorithms had to be transparent. You know, like when you are doing anything like a search on Google or whatever, you should be able to at least select a completely basic open source type algorithm, or preferably be able to look into them. But I mean, and what they're finding obviously when they start to look into them and finally start to get some form of access, which I guess they must have had here is that these algorithms works to promote Google's own businesses ahead of its competitors. And this is this is like a typical antitrust case. This is like how it works. You are just eating the complete verticality and horizontal marketplace by offering services that are like an app store, right? You're only promoting apps that you develop yourself ahead of everyone else's apps. So you're providing the marketplace, and you're also able to skew the market in your own favor. And this is super dangerous, and why these types of businesses needs to be separated. If you own the marketplace, you should not develop for that marketplace. Your job is to be a marketplace, a fair and equal one, right? So good stuff, though, a little bit positive. But what happened then? What did our poor front? They got slapped back, France, immediately.
Yeah.
Maybe not related, but let's watch this.
We have to come up with a theme for tonight, so
yeah,
we're going to pause this.
So we can like imagine that this is like Google slapping back.
Yeah, or someone slapping back at least.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of. What the fuck? I haven't seen this before. What the sort of slap is that? What is he doing?
Like it's not even bad. It's like very.
You hear the sound
like
of
he's actually trying to harm him or anything. It's just like, don't touch me.
Yeah, he's like, I said no.
Out, like apparently he shouted like down with Macronism or something, and also some kind of a catchphrase, even like a historical catchphrase or battle cry. I can't remember it.
Yeah.
I don't know French, so wouldn't dare to try to pronounce it here. But still, apparently, it's somehow tied to like the royalist tradition or like the monarchist tradition, which apparently still exists there. Like, imagine there are still monarchists, like unironical monarchists in the country. But unfortunately, apparently it's turned out, since they went to search the guy's house, it turns out he's a fascist. He's not like a fun like meme kind of political radical, but he's actually they went in and apparently they found a pile of weapons and Mein Kampf.
Yeah, we'll see also what kind of comes out of that, but I mean this statement too afterwards is this is the president, prime minister. Sorry.
I mean, the fact that you're a Mein Kampf at home doesn't make you a Nazi.
Oh, hello, Renee.
Hello.
Of course it doesn't, but still, this was what was mentioned. This is what found relevant to mention for some reason. I guess it's also the weapons. And maybe something else as well that came up.
Yeah, obviously, I'm not saying he's not a Nazi, but I'm just saying that you should be a bit careful drawing conclusions. This guy could be somebody who's tired of the system and so sort of got his ass into an ideology of some kind. It doesn't even have to be like coherent, right?
No, but you heard that from some source, I guess, right? You can link it later. They're looking into this dude anyway. Hi, Renee. By the way, Renee is now worried because you and Otto has a.
There, so...
Yeah, you can.
No,
we can
I mean
it's.
I'm actually a bit sorry I couldn't make it today because I got delayed on another thing here on a business meeting.
It's fine. Actually, we are having every other week Corona now, as we said, so it should be next week.
Yeah, sorry. We have in chat Hitler var emot monarchy, just saying, and yeah, actually, good point. The fact that he might seem like a fascist, or at least some people have read the guy as a fascist, doesn't actually have to mean that he's not like someone radicalized on the internet into some kind of a weird meme fusion of an ideology. That's a good point.
Yeah. Yeah, obviously. Otherwise, Otto is a fascist.
Yeah, and it's also quite funny how people use those words so carelessly. There's a very big difference ideologically between being a National Socialist and being a fascist.
But the point is still the fact that he had weapons at home makes it, and seems to, those sort of things makes it. Obviously, the government is going to take it a little bit more serious than if it was just some random dude who seems like he was just pranking. Like if he have some form of political interest and weapons and stuff and seems to be preparing for something. No matter what ideology he has, they're gonna ramp up. That's for sure.
Of course. No, but I mean,
scroll downward. We have. So apparently there are two people. The slapper, and then there's another suspect. I still haven't found out from any of these how the other guy is related.
So what did he do? Was he making jokes? So he was filming it. He was. I mean, what kind of heinous terrorist attack did he do?
I mean, it isn't. That's kind of the fun thing. I mean, it's just like this whole thing just becomes like, and even here, I mean, it becomes just more of a meme. But the fun thing is, let's anyway read about them. Who are the suspects? The first man suspected of slapping the president is believed to have had an interest in a number of far-right and monarchist figures, as well as a medieval French history. On his Instagram page, he describes himself as a part of a national federation of historic European martial arts, alongside pictures of himself dressed in clothes, blah, 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 blah. But according to one friend, he is apolitical, and the slap was completely out of character. The Parisian website quoted source in the investigation as summing up his politics as ideological mush. The suspect is also heard to shout "Montjoy et Saint-Denis," down with Macronism. Although he used a medieval battle cry. This is fucking amazing.
Although
French commentators also believe he could be mimicking a comic character in medieval armor from the 1993 film. I mean, I can't believe they looked this far into it. I mean, the reality is this, though.
Oh my god, I think I've seen the film.
Oh, really?
I was so young that I don't remember anything but that guy from it.
Yeah, this Leon guy.
Unless Jean Reno has been in like several medieval comedies, which is also probably possible. Like the guy's been around for ages.
True.
Okay, so the guy likes Game of Thrones.
Yeah, no, that's not what we would read out of this. But I mean, all of this is naturally, it doesn't mean anything. None of this means anything.
If say, like using the F word is a bad faith reading of what we know about this guy, then so he likes Game of Thrones is certainly on the very opposite end of the possible spectrum, you know.
He stood alongside the two other men during blah 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 blah. Yeah. But I mean, come on! I don't know. I think it's just a funny. I think this is a kind of like what we have it for.
This so many times before, like a guy who's extremely interested somehow in, you know, specific
how about
versions
the
of
fact that
history
he's
in far right figures, and also describes themselves as apolitical. I mean,
I'm sorry to
at the
say,
very
but
least, he's going to. It's likely that he's been spending a lot of time in very, let's say, interesting corners of the internet, at least.
I mean, who wants to be in boring parts of the internet? Seriously, no, but
you know,
I mean,
like
isn't the more reasonable explanation that he might be pissed the fact that he's been forced to stay indoors for about a year because of stupid politicians like Macron? And I think a slap is like it's definitely on the low side of the spectrum what he deserves.
Yeah,
I mean, how many thousands of
I don't. Obviously, since we're on the record, I can't condone any kind of violence, especially not political violence. But like, it's not the slap. Like,
let's see.
Actually look too bad, and like it's more of. Find it more amusing, to be honest.
It's a fun story.
It didn't look like a threatening situation, honestly.
I mean, I like.
I'm actually more inclined to believe like some people were commenting that he just seemed pissed that Macron walks in with his camera crew and people and seems to be starting to pose for some kind of a PR photo, and he just doesn't want to be involved. Like, I find that's a very plausible explanation.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? That's kind of the thing. What I always think about this, I mean, you can speculate and you can do whatever. The reality is, unless there is, and this is kind of the thing with always with this, unless there is a clear manifesto, it's actually kind of really hard to tell why people are doing what they do. And quite often, people are going to jump to conclusions. This one, though, is completely ridiculous. You got slapped. I mean, how many times, what the fuck, there was someone throwing a shoe at Bush. There's been cakes in Sweden many times. It seems like this is really kind of fun stories.
I would like to point out that I mean, throwing a cake at the Swedish king compared like making different forms of civil, shall I call it light violent protests against mass murderers is I mean, I think this I at least I can spot a difference.
I think everyone can do that. I'm not sure who you're trying to argue with at this point. You seem argumentative for no reason. This is just a fun story. This is not a terrorist attack. No one is saying it is, right?
Yeah, like I apologize for using the F word so early in. I understand that it makes people upset. It's just, I also find it kind of funny that we are still having these discussions, like after 10 years of this certain, let's say, certain far-right sentiments getting mainstreamed exactly through these arguments of, well, we can't exactly know what these guys are about, like we shouldn't be too quick to rush to judgments, you know. This just all sounds like I'm in 2013 again or something.
Yeah, I can agree. Can agree with that too. But obviously in this case, we don't know, and we will actually never know.
Yeah, we won't know. Like,
well,
obviously,
actually,
we can't read minds. We can never ascertain what's going. Like, we don't know what's actually going on in each other's minds either. Like, even we tell each other, we can't know. So obviously, we can't know what's going on.
But I mean, this guy's probably been arrested, right? He's. I would assume that they're going to try to prosecute him for something.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting.
That's going to be a trial. He might actually get the opportunity to speak. I mean, he's not, at least not as far as I know, held in some kind of weird military tribunal with no witnesses, no court cases, no.
No, there's going to be a normal trial and probably pretty.
there's going to be an open normal trial, so he can speak his mind and he can tell us why he thinks that he did it.
Yeah.
And people can agree with him and people can disagree with him. It's not a big thing.
Yeah.
We are living in very stressful times, and sometimes people decide to do stuff like this.
Yeah, I can tell you like this. I honestly want, and this is gonna, like I'm not gonna say I do not condone violence, but also to a certain extent I have I got some problems calling this violence to that regard, and I think there are absolutely times where civil disobedience is necessary. I don't think this is necessarily a time. But the point is, again, I mean, in so many times, the only way that you can actually get some press is that when you're doing something like this. And that, I believe, is a problem all by itself, right? I mean, there are so many kind of like...
the 15 seconds of fame, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're creating that sort of culture as well. And it's going to be interesting to hear, maybe this was a thought-out PR strategy, and let's see what happens. I mean, it's the kind of the...
It was the opportunity,
Yeah.
And he seized it. He's got his 15 seconds of fame. And I mean, if he gets to, say 1 month in jail or whatever, I mean...
I know, it's... Yeah.
Unless the system goes completely berserk, he should be out within a very reasonable time. Less than a year. Then some people might even say it might be worth it.
Yeah, I honestly think if they, and this is kind of the thing, becomes the problem. He should just be, there should be like whatever would happen in a normal situation like this, and probably with that, and oh god. Anyway, we'll follow this up.
In a normal situation, he would not get prosecuted. In a normal situation, he would definitely not get prosecuted.
No, I don't.
I mean, we don't even solve fucking murders in this country.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is like a filmed one, right? So it really depends on. I think in these kind of cases, when it's some high profile, there's just a lot of people and police officers around.
If it's high profile, it's a completely different story.
I mean, it's not necessarily a different story. He can probably settle the case.
It's a very different story.
I mean, what I'm saying is,
the same rule book.
Are you in France?
No. I agree that it's not always the same, but I wouldn't jump to that conclusion. Look, if you're standing in front of a lot of police officers and you're slapping someone, and they're watching you. That are committing crimes, they got caught on camera that weren't prosecuted. Okay, I haven't seen that. But rather I have been.
So no. It's like
Göteborgskravallerna. I mean, you can't really compare those sort of things. I mean, rather compare it to a situation where there is no problem, there is a lot of police, and you commit a crime right in front of them. I mean, that's the kind of situation you have to look at, right? If there's like a riot going on, I believe that there's a lot of people who are gonna, for different reasons, they're just not gonna start arresting everyone. I mean, it's the same with this Frihetsmarschen, right? That's going on right now. They're not gonna just arrest everyone.
No, because they don't have enough room in the jails, right? Especially after today's great bravado. That'll be very interesting to see what happens after that.
Okay, yeah, we're not gonna talk about that now, though. I think we're gonna jump on to the next news.
Should we move on to the third and possibly final France headline we had?
Yes. Let me find
it. Why we're speaking English, by the way? Just
okay. For you who jumped in here wildly, right now we're doing PTV Global, so we're talking English and we're going through EU news mostly. Well,
EU
only.
Okay, gotcha.
Global news, but focus on Europe.
Right. Have you talked about the mass surveillance thing that happened today?
We were just talking about the France antitrust fine. I think there are more things that possibly coming up. I'm not sure which one you're referring to. Anyway,
no,
there are a lot of mass surveillance things going on nowadays, so you have to be more specific.
No, the FBI hacking of that quote unquote encrypted service. Which hacking is sort of a mispronunciation of it. Basically, criminals decided to buy a popular encrypted service, which they thought was encrypted. What they didn't understand, it was run by the FBI, and
Right.
they were basically
that case. Yeah.
yeah.
We
They
haven't
were
gotten on the
basically.
list, but we might
I-
get
I've-
to it at some point.
We talked
I
about
think
We have
it
some
could be
plans for
very
tonight.
interesting I think it would be very interesting from a Pirate Party perspective to actually discuss it, because I think this is a very big problem heading our way.
Yeah, I agree, and there are other interesting developments with regard to encryption going on in the EU. So maybe we can get to that for those at some point. But like, we're basically only getting started with trying to revive this like international or global program, make it a regular thing. There's a channel for it on the server, so if there's something you really want to see discussed, maybe drop some links there so we can add it to the list.
Sure.
Since we have a list for tonight.
Yeah, it's called PTV Int. Drop it there. I think we can definitely discuss it once we're done with the kind of things, or maybe throw it in once it's kind of appropriate in the timeline.
So I'll PTV Int, you said.
Yeah, actually, I should rename that. It's now global.
Should we do like the
PTV.
third France link is a bit
I'm trying
further
to
down the
find it.
document?
Yeah. Hang on.
PTV Global, there you
go. Okay. More France.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have to get done with France so we can move on to less upsetting things.
So France planned to rein in big tech and Ireland and Luxembourg. Paris wants to append the EU's rules that leave Dublin and Luxembourg in charge of policing most of Silicon Valley's companies. The French government wants to beef up EU rules for big tech. Yeah. You want to give us a rundown?
Yeah. I guess the basics to know, obviously, I'm sure Ireland and Luxembourg ring some kind of bells for most people listening right now. Most big tech companies have their European bases in those countries, or those countries, and there's obviously a lot of what could be called tax evasion involved and other legal shenanigans always, and that's just been the way things have been so far, and these countries aren't too keen on cracking down on the tech giants since they are getting a decent deal out of hosting them. And what this news bit is about it's about the Digital Services Act and the Digital Markets Act, which are like huge legislative projects going on in the EU this term.
Yeah, and that we will talk much more about.
As part of them, France and I'm sure many other EU countries are trying to sort of get their word in on how they'd like to see big tech being put in its place. So it's that kind of story.
Yeah, did they have anything proposed for how they're going to do it? Let me see.
They always have things proposed, right?
Yeah, they do. So according to briefings with French officials and documents seen by Politico, Paris plans to rework the EU's content moderation bill so that it doesn't have to rely on other countries' regulators to police and, if required, punish the biggest platforms. Paris does not want to be completely dependent on the responsiveness, the willingness to move quickly of the country of origin's regulator, an official from the economy ministry told reporters Wednesday. So the issue here is I think there is some mention of the GDPR, the data protection regulation later on, and the lessons that we have learned from that. Like, we have this decent data protection legislation now. We have had it in force for a few years now, and some of the problems that they have been running into is that the tech companies are primarily liable to they must be prosecuted and dealt with mainly in the countries where they are legally based. And since and as mentioned, the countries hosting them are getting a fairly sweet or a sweet enough deal out of it currently that they aren't like super excited to crack down on them. And this is what France, I'm sure many others are kind of upset about. And this is what they're trying to fix.
Mm.
They are
Imagine
saying
that the EU is
they don't want to remove or get rid of the country of origin principle, which again states that companies are regulated by the authority of the country they are legally based in. They don't want to get rid of the principle, but they want to include some kind of other tools or measures in the legislation that will allow, I assume in certain conditions, for other countries to sort of move in as well if necessary. There was talk of emergency situations, which can be kind of alarming. Like this might, depending on how this gets implemented or what kind of amendments get through to the text, this could either turn out to be fairly good or it could turn out to be very bad.
Yeah, this is incredibly broad. We really have to watch this. I mean, it could be, like you say, I mean, it could be anything. It could give governments incredible power over these sort of things. But it could also be formulated in a way that actually ends up being fairly good. We'd have to really see.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry for being the sort of pessimist here, but my take on this basically two things. First of all, the EU structure is actually working. Perhaps not as the way the politicians like it to be, but the way it was constructed. So obviously, it's a race to the bottom when it comes to different kinds of censorship. Companies can establish themselves in the zone where there's less censorship. So, and of course,
I'd like to interrupt you right there about talking about companies finding themselves in places with the least censorship. I'd actually like to contest that, since, I mean, as we discussed pre-stream, this isn't about taxes or just about taxes, but there are other incentives for companies. Like, countries are going to if the taxes get fixed so that the race to the bottom gets at least controlled a bit more than it is right now in the EU, the countries are going to come up with other ways to sweeten the deal for the companies, and it's probably going to be economic, probably more indirectly in the future. And I think I'd claim, or I dare say, that it's the economic incentives that are going to be prioritizing instead of some kind of a lofty value like least censorship, honestly.
Well, okay, let me put it from a bit of a different perspective. Obviously, all companies, well, not all of them, but most companies, they're here for one thing only. That's to maximize their profit. Now, a very good way to maximize your profit is to maximize the usability for your users, for the majority of your users, I should say, the vast majority of your users. Which means that unprofitable users like terrorists or people with funny political opinions can easily be silenced, and you can still continue running your profitable social network, right? Facebook is a very good example of that. Twitter also. But you need to have some form of opinion, otherwise you don't draw the contents. Now, anything that doesn't drive, I mean, state bureaucracy costs a lot of money.
Yes.
Censorship, filtering costs a lot of money.
That depends on the way they are mandated.
No, it costs a lot of money. Either
it does depend.
Wait. If the alternative is you don't do it at all, then it costs a lot of money. Either you have to make up very nice algorithms to sort of get rid of content automatically in some kind of AI manner. That costs very much money. Or you need to have people who manually filter the net. Those people are not going to do it for free. those people are going to, even if they will work from places like Philippines or Malaysia, and they got laughable, at least in our view, laughable salaries, they still expect to get paid. And how easy is it to go through a chat group to try to find quote unquote threats or violence or sex or whatever you now want to filter, or perhaps a political opinion which is not shared by the majority, or perhaps might be shared by a majority but not shared by the current rulers. This is of course costly, and any company who is for profit is looking to reduce costs, so they can select the country with the least amount of bureaucracy, a mandatory bureaucracy for running a social network. It's easy, right? And of course, proponents of different kinds of filter systems, and you can of course claim it's GDPR and it's about privacy, but come on, let's all be honest with each other.
But I'm not sure. I'm not sure 100% sure exactly how this is related to this, though.
No, but I mean, they say it's GDPR. They want to sort of protect this quote unquote these nice laws, but as far as I see, the thing that's driving this is that they want to be able to sort of censor, or they want to control information flows. And the pandemic has made that even.
I'm not sure anyone here disagrees with you. I'm kind of inclined to agree with Kringland that your tone is a bit argumentative. Like it. It just seems all the time like as if. Yeah.
No, I hope people agree with
as if we are like strongly disagreeing with something we just said.
No, I'm not. I'm just trying to sort of possibly clarify what I think is the summary of this, and that is that I don't think politicians take GDPR seriously. I think they definitely
some don't. But the general trend, I'd agree, is that this is more likely to lead more state control and censorship. Yeah.
Yes. So I'm almost certain that the driving factor behind this is that they want to control the political outcome of the next election.
But the sort of the option here, like the thing here is that the EU is among a couple of others, like the like major blocs or countries, some of the only credible, opponents for the tech giants at this point. Like these are the only tools or like the only forces that can actually try.
I would definitely disagree there. I would definitely disagree there. I mean, if we believe that the only option we have as citizens is to allow the corrupt politicians to police the equally corrupt tech giants, then I think we're in a very bad place. And I'm definitely not so pessimistic.
We could get into the decision about, the discussion about whether we should even have the EU, but.
I mean, you kind of get down to that discussion. I mean, should we do revolution, or I mean, if we're talking about parliamentary democracy and we want to keep that going.
What I'm saying is that the most advantageous.
What we've seen in the last 10 or 15 years as these tech giants have been growing, and for the longest time, states that just let them do whatever they wanted. Have those been desirable outcomes?
I would say that the market is a far better, shall I call it, filterer or punisher.
We don't have a free market. We have Okay, then we have a very fundamental disagreement here. We have a very fundamental disagreement here.
We have a very free market. Stop using WhatsApp, start using Telegram. It's a very simple thing. And people are doing it. People are pissed and people are...
It's not just WhatsApp and Telegram. That's not the whole digital ecosystem. And you know it.
No, it's not. It's not. But when you as a user, and sometimes as a customer, decide that this platform is no longer for me, I'm going to go over here, then you're going to get better services. It's a vote that happens every day, several times a day. Instead of thinking that every 4th year or whatever, 5th year when it comes to the EU.
For instance, Facebook and Google have been like notorious for, Facebook in particular have been notorious for anti-competitive actions. Like they've been buying off or just plagiarizing, if they can afford it, all their credible competitors. And like,
Correct.
who's going to stop that?
You know, there's such an echo in this room. 20 years ago, I had exactly the same argument when it came to Microsoft. Then Microsoft was this Goliath that nobody could ever stop.
It's still a Goliath.
No, they're not. They're definitely a has-been company that's getting less and less relevant by the day, and whose operating system is getting less and less used by the day. Nobody
not really.
In Q1 2020, Windows had 87.5% market share.
It's been pretty stable, actually.
No, they didn't.
OS-wise, it's been pretty stable for laptops. I mean, you have a lot of new
laptops,
but that's
exactly.
kind of that's part of the thing. Do you expect like so the way that a market works is this: a new occasionally some new innovation happens, and then a big company for a few years or a new company for a few years have the opportunity to grow hugely big, like Google did on search engines, right? And then they just master that. Then they own 90% of the market, and then we're happy. And everyone who actually wants to have a free competitive market should move on to the next thing. Like maybe now everyone should work with blockchain. And in a few years, there's going to be like one big blockchain ledger that controls a huge part of that particular market.
Well, actually, that particular market has gone in the completely opposite direction. We had one dominating chain for the first 10 years, and now Bitcoin is now down to 40%, which is, we haven't seen any numbers that are this low ever. Ether, which is the second competitor, is at 20%. So there you have a clear, good, productive market which is driving a lot of innovation. Let's talk for messaging systems for a little bit here, because I think this is important, right? Everybody now believes that WhatsApp is so dominating. Well, yeah, sure they are. How was it 10 years ago? Who was the dominating platform? Skype. Anybody using Skype today? It was bought by Microsoft. No, nobody's using it. Microsoft is desperately trying to make people use Teams, and yeah, they have a decent product, so they've got customers, but they're no longer dominating. WhatsApp is the dominator today because WhatsApp had a better service.
WhatsApp is not dominating today. Okay, you're gonna come with some data here. So WhatsApp is the dominating messaging system.
Yeah, today.
All right. You're seriously. First of all, I really doubt, and this is about much more than that. I don't think you'd have very few people that would agree with you on saying that there isn't an extremely dominant force in big tech giants, but also in other industries. There's not a whole lot of competition in the food industry, for instance. In the toy industry where I've worked, I can tell you, there is in the music industry. There's 3 big fucking companies. All right. Like the centralization on these markets is incredible. And that's you can say that that's the free market all you want, but regardless of what sort of, if you don't have any legislation, the same things are going to happen over time. You got to take care of your markets if you intend to keep them free. It's not in the business's interest to allow competition. That's not just going to happen. And eventually, you're going to have that much cash that you can really use the system, or in some legal ways, if the government is in on it, then that's so bad, right? You get corrupt governments. But even without that, you got to maintain and make sure that these companies does not use unfair business practices to stamp out all of their competition. I don't see any real way around that, and there is a possibility that these types of market can be self-regulating. For instance, through new technology, like if you're building it on, say, Ethereum or whatever, where you have set rules. But that's because there are set rules on these markets.
There's always someone setting the rules.
Yeah.
There's always some kind of regulation. Like the main mistakes or weird thoughts that many libertarians seem to have is that there would be anything resembling of what we understand as the markets or the free market nowadays if we just lost the state or these international blocks. It would be a different game. The kind of market we see today is entirely dependent as co-evolved with the kind of state we currently have.
And I wouldn't mind.
Also, most of the major companies, it's true that when the states or the EU and these giant corporations go head to head, it's usually not the regular people who get much benefit out of it. But still, there is, again, we have corporations that are larger economic entities that a large portion of the world's countries currently. And say Amazon, at least theoretically, if you happen to be born in the right country, you can move abroad and get rid of your initial citizenship and get a new one and just build a life there. Get rid of where you happen to be born. But for, say, Amazon, so much of the internet now and digital infrastructure runs on AWS. You can't get rid of that anywhere. You don't have the choice. So how is that a form of power that is more acceptable than what the states are?
Wait. What did you just say here? What did you just say here? You said that the majority of internet runs on AWS.
Significant portion of the internet, but
yeah, but I mean, AWS is a cloud hosting platform that is open source, more or less.
Still tied. Look,
I mean, I use AWS in many of our projects. AWS is a extremely low entry point market. What AWS is doing, there are thousands and thousands of competitors in different branches. You can get almost any kind of service that you're looking for. It's not very difficult to start a competitor. If you're better than AWS is, there's no scaling. I mean, seriously. I think people are much more afraid of the logos than the actual giant. I'm just looking here now. We were discussing messaging apps, right? So WhatsApp, Facebook,
you
Messenger,
were discussing
WeChat.
messaging apps, but go ahead. We can just lean back and let you go ahead.
No, I mean you are talking tech giants, with the exception of Google, which has been the dominant search engine, which everybody can agree upon is one of the key dominant factors of the internet, right? The ability to find information is super important for us. And there have been several competitors trying to outbeat Google there, but nobody can do it for 2 decades. So they've been the number one winner. But if I remove Google, there isn't a single tech app there that has survived 10 years as a dominator. Not a single one. You could make an argument about Facebook. But Facebook basically is being, and of course it's funny because it's Facebook being replaced by Facebook in the form of Instagram. But it's still
It's the
like
same
a new
company.
application. Yeah, it is the same company for sure, but it's a new application.
Which means in terms of the market, it's the same thing. I mean, it's
No,
still
but
the same
it means
actor.
a
It's the
competitor.
same. Are you seriously
yeah,
saying that two branches of the same corporation are viable competition to each other on the market? Are you
of course.
serious?
In this case, yes, of course. I mean, there's a very big difference between Facebook and Instagram. And if you pay attention, then you see that now Instagram is being sort of challenged by, what's its name, TikTok?
Yeah, Facebook has owned Instagram, and they explicitly said back then, like Zuckerberg even has gotten in trouble later in all those hearings for saying that like they just had to buy it off because they were bleeding users to Instagram.
Exactly.
Like that's textbook anti-competitive behavior. Buying off your competitors.
But did they close down Instagram or did they make it a success?
But come on, like it doesn't really matter. What you're lacking here to a big degree is the analysis of power. All right. I mean, it comes down to who owns these huge corporations, and you will also find that it turns out that the people who are owning parts of Facebook are owning other parts of the industry as well. I mean, it becomes extremely
shareholders.
Yeah, look, I think we need to have a debate clearly, but this is not the show to continue for this. We can have a libertarian debate. It'd be fun. We've had it before actually, but the last time it took 6 hours. I'm not sure it's gonna take any shorter now.
Yeah, it might be a good idea to have like moderation and maybe limit the scope a bit, since I think we're just like jumping between, like there is no coordination here. There's like we're not getting anywhere with this.
But we need to. We've been talking about it before, and I'm open for setting it up whenever you have time. Right? You just let me know.
Yeah, sure. I'm just trying to sort of broaden the perspective a little bit. I mean, I've been following this market for decades, and believe me, I was scared about Microsoft 20 years ago. But I can now honestly say the market took care of it. No regulator did it, but the market did it. Now we have other very powerful tech companies that are definitely, I believe, influencing. And you know very well how angry I was about what happened at the 7th of January this year, when we saw clear interference in the political process of countries from these tech giants. So they are clearly a threat to democracy and to free speech. But I would like.
Yeah, we have fundamental different ideas about that. But I mean, we have the same. We can look at it and see the same sort of problems. We just approach them completely different, I believe.
Yeah, but look at the statistics. Governments have almost never been able to do anything about these tech giants, but the market has done so in 1 to 2 political terms. So
here's the thing about like once for when Facebook, you have the debate, a question like can you prepare like an exhaustive explanation of the ways that the tech ecosystem or the digital ecosystem, like the tech giants, how are they like fundamentally different on like a market analytic level or whatever, on an economic level, from other monopolies, other monopolistic businesses that have existed, say in the previous century, which actually were being regulated pretty successfully for a good while, until Reagan happened and some others happened, and they started like making like scaling the power down, scaling the antitrust officials' power down, basically.
I would say if you really want hand at heart, look at companies that became too successful, and that were then broken up by government regulation, I think you're going to be hard pressed to find more than 10 over a period of 100 years.
Yeah, I mean, we both think that's a problem. We both think that's a problem, but you think it for the reason that they haven't found any. I would say that's
not what I said. That's no. Then you're getting me wrong. I said if you look at where actually intervention happened and where government stopped a destructive monopoly, I think I know 2 companies on the back of my head. Standard Oil, back in the days, and I think it was it IBM or
IBM got some. Actually, Microsoft got a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, a few companies have been threatened with it. And
Kodak got it big time.
Yeah, that's what I said. But I mean, if we're looking at the most severe punishment where they actually break up the company, I think it's a handful. Compared to the number of times when you see the market regulated by a new technology coming up, which totally whacks the old giant, or then you clearly, when it comes to the numbers, the markets does it much more often.
Are you saying that the reason that so let's say 98% of dominant market powers get just appended by market forces, and there's some tiny percent that get too big and have to be broken up? So are you saying that because 98% or whatever the number is, I'm just making this up for the example, but you're saying that a tiny fraction actually went so far that they had to be broken up. So are you saying that because most, besides the tiny fraction, don't have to be broken up, we shouldn't be dealing with the fraction that needs to be broken up?
No, I'm just saying it's an extremely ineffective weapon. It's a very ineffective tool. And don't get your hopes up. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, I think there's, but no one is saying that's the only tool. I mean, there's a lot of tools.
If you've been paying attention, but in the US, breaking down big tech has been a mainstream refrain in politics recently. And the US is where the big tech companies are being based. And that doesn't happen on its own. It comes from people talking about it and saying that we should break them up. Instead of, and I'm sure there have been people, that's what kept the discussion down for such a long time, is people saying a lot of things that resemble the things you are saying. That it's not going to work anyway. We shouldn't bother. It's not going to happen. Obviously, it's not going to happen if nobody is going for it.
What I'm saying is that I think it's going to happen, but I think it's not going to be the government's going to do it.
It doesn't seem to happen.
I think
the reason Facebook has been in trouble is just because the government has started paying attention to it.
Yeah, because government, or I should say,
it doesn't have to get that far. The only reason they have been starting to respond even to some degree to the government's demands or the public's interest is that they are afraid of it getting to the point that they need to be broken up. So that's
obviously
public and political pressure doing its work there. And are you saying that that's not that doesn't work? We are literally seeing it work. We have been literally seeing it work for the past few years, as it has again become a mainstream thing. But you just said that it's not efficient and you shouldn't be getting your hopes up. You're saying it doesn't, it can't be, obviously we can probably agree that we shouldn't count on the government just automatically always doing these things. But the way we get the government, or companies for that matter, to do things is by creating public pressure. And we don't get public pressure, we don't get the critical mass if we just sit on our asses and say, well, nothing good is going to come anyway, so why bother? Let's just wait for the invisible hand to take care of it.
That's not what I said. I said that it's more efficient to influence the market than influence the politician.
Why can't you do both? This is kind of the thing that I don't understand.
Not everyone has the resources to affect the market to the same extent.
When it comes to Facebook, I would say that it's extremely level playing field. Everybody has an account.
I would disagree.
Exactly one account. So if you choose not to participate, then
like none of this is either or. None of this is either or, because like honestly, your arguments just keep sounding like this is stupid. Why do you even bother?
Yes. So what I'm saying, and the reason why I don't really like the idea of government pressuring, quote unquote, big tech, or I like to call it the information infrastructure of the planet, is because I'm very much afraid of the result. And so far, when I've seen government interference in the information market, it has gone definitely in the wrong direction. We are seeing censorship being called for and enacted much more frequently in places where I would never ever expected it 20 years ago to appear. I mean, we're talking United States of America. The country was founded on the free speech, the idea of free speech 200 years ago, 200 plus years ago.
That's extremely idealistic of you to think that the US has been somehow fundamentally been built on these high ideals. Like,
it's in the fucking Bill of Rights.
We both
know that it has always, like, it's never been for everyone there. It hasn't even been for all the whites. It's just been for the well-off. Like, it's never been, like, they've never lived up to the ideals they claim to uphold.
No,
but they were
that's
doing
a
better.
different discussion.
Last century, they have been doing better.
Freedom of speech is the First Amendment in the Bill of Rights. It's I would say it's the.
But I mean, are you
the United States is built upon?
Are you saying that YouTube should not? Yeah, but censorship. So should these? I don't get it.
Doesn't say says in their, like, every single country in the world has something about free speech or like no censorship in their constitution or other laws. Like even China has it. Probably even North Korea has it. So and still it's not happening there. So like talking about these papers, talking about legislation doesn't automatically win you the argument.
I mean, and it's also, so first of all, your argument here, if I can understand it correctly, is that the reason why YouTube is blocking certain accounts is because government, right? That's one. It's impossible to think that these platforms actually could have TOS and ban users because they actually do negatively affect their pure profit. It actually isn't that great if their platform gets filled up with shit that a lot of their users are not interested in. And the public pressure, the public financial pressure of users to actually do something about it, it becomes something that you have to take into account. And
you do realize, yeah. Sure,
I mean, I don't think it's like, if you. Okay. There's also another thing. I mean, sure, we could build another Twitch.
Yes.
I mean, we could.
Not only we can build. What I'm saying is that another Twitch is going to be built.
Yeah, and I mean, these things.
5 years from 5 years from now, the companies who made these horrible decisions these years are going to be punished by the market, by the users.
I think you have... look, I'm in between on many of these things, and I think all of us here actually are. The thing is, what I see here is that you cannot fight a war on one front, really. And there is no way, the way that I've seen it, going through, for instance, the startup scene today, the startup scene and the way that these new platforms are being built, the way that it works is outsourced innovation for the big financial interests. You will get bought up, or you will
is to get an exit. The goal is to get either be bought by a monopolist or become a monopolist in your sector, and you do that. You accomplish that by getting VC money.
And it's incredibly hard.
The gamble that the reason you get VC money is that they are gambling. They are relying on you to reach the monopoly.
Or to get sold. I mean, and the
either get sold or reach the monopoly status where, while you have been like building up to that through being subsidized by this risk capital.
Yeah, and I mean, if you are working
they can get paid back when you reach the monopoly status, and you can raise the prices.
I mean, it's
what they would be in a free market.
Yeah, and you'll get shadow banned.
There's plenty of research done on this. Like, this is how Uber and many other so-called platform economy companies operate.
And like we were just listening to one of the things that they're trying to do is actually find Google when it's not giving people or other companies outside Google or outside their ownership sphere or outside the friends sphere. They're giving them unfair advantages on the markets that they have created and own.
That's correct. And I mean, I would say Google is definitely
maybe the point here
a company.
That's
a problem.
The existence of these huge, like colossal players on the market is in itself like distorting the entire playing field, so that there is the market isn't as healthy as it could be if there was like functional controls to keep like the biggest players a bit smaller than we'll let them be.
Or at least just to make sure that competition is fair.
We would be getting like faster turnover and more competition if the largest players were this huge. Like, it would be better for this innovation and this like disruption and turnover if the if we had like less megacorps.
Anyway, I mean, this is an interesting discussion, definitely, and it's already getting late. René, I really think, I mean, we want to set up a program specifically for this. I mean, it's fun to dive off in, but it's actually absolutely not the point of today's program, even though it was, streams happen, right? But get back to me, because I mean, if you have the time again, let's set up some debate / discussion nights about these things, because it's funny. And I mean, my belief is that you fight on all fronts always in a way, right?
I prefer the ones that I find effective.
Yeah, I mean, we have different strategies, and but those are good and great, fun to be discussed and debated.
But
let me know what time.
One of the reasons why I'm sort of raising my voice here is because I feel that people should understand that they have much more power in their own hands than society would like to tell them. I mean, a big problem with this sort of government socialism that we have in Sweden, and I would say spreading, is that the idea itself is to make people helpless and believe the government is the only solution to their problems, which, I mean, look at the statistics, it's not the case. It's definitely not the case.
I mean, I'm not sure maybe I should have introduced myself. Like, should we have some kind of like calling cards for each host and each guest where we like spell out our political views with a bunch of buzzwords, so people don't have to like doubt that we are somehow like these stupid mainstream sheep who don't really understand what's going on. Like, should we do that? Since like I'm definitely coming at this from a left libertarian standpoint. I'm also like, if you ask pro business or pro market, obviously I'm also pro market. but we just have clearly we have a different idea of what the role of, the state or the public sector can be in regulating or in like relation to those markets. Like that's the thing here. Like you don't have to take this weird like
anti-shitlib take, perhaps. I don't know what it is.
Or like this oppositional attitude necessarily.
No, I'm not taking a positional attitude. That's not my point. What I'm saying is that when I read the data, when I read the trends, I see that the people's choices that they make in everyday life, and that's like, do you buy an iPhone? Do you buy an Android? Do you buy perhaps something completely different? Those kind of decisions are much more influential to forming the global trend than voting every 4th year.
There are other ways,
and lobbying people who you voted for or did not vote for.
There are other ways to just do like this cabinet or like NGO type lobbying, or like the kinds of campaigns, like PR campaign type lobbying efforts we've seen. Like there are other ways besides that of voting. Like you're speaking from a very like it's very symptomatic of the past few decades how this like individualist, atomized attitudes.
Yeah, I think you can do both.
I agree with you. Like individual action matters a lot. Like I follow the climate discourse a lot, and this crops up there all the time. Like it's a very like open question there as well. Like individual action, individual decisions, consumption, or collective action. And like I think it's not like a galaxy brain take to say why not both. Like both are good, both are okay, both matter.
And there are more, because I like what you said there. I just want to say that, Renee. I like what you said there. You are right. The power is afraid of the people. This is fundamental. This will always be the case. And I mean, tomorrow, for instance, we're going to have the syndicalisterna here, radical union, right? Who is pros at organizing, because there is a lot of things that you can do to both raise awareness, to change people's buying behavior, and at the same time also raise people's awareness of different sort of issues, and at the same time work for, say, your own personal rights against an employer, if that's what you need, or whatever it is, right? And I think that sort of thing is important. Everyone have to understand that we are a part of a market. We have a lot of power, but we have a lot of power in more. And one of those things is in what we buy. Definitely, absolutely. But we actually have power in a lot of different things and in a lot of different ways. And particularly when we're unified, that's when power can change. That's when things are changing. I mean, I was just watching a documentary. I think we're going to watch a part of it tomorrow about the Black Panthers. Once they got hated was when they unified with the Latino and the poor white community. Once that really happened and they started with their social programs, and they really started, that's like also when they started meeting a lot of resistance. But I mean, power comes from a lot of different sectors, definitely. And ultimately, it's your individual responsibility to change the things that you want to change in a democracy, right? Or in any country.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, but I mean, for me, as somebody who sort of grew up in a quote-unquote democracy, but with absolutely zero opportunity to do something on your own, you were totally stuck in what the politicians decided that you should do. You could vote for them every 4th year or whatever it was. No worries. But you could do exactly zero influence between those 4 years. And to see the difference between that system and the system which we all are used to, where anybody can start a company, when everybody can say, but I can do that better. I can do that in a different way.
Not everyone has more. Not everyone is on equal footing to start a company. let alone
No, of
a
course not.
successful one.
But that's not the point. This is not about equality. This is about the ability for people to try, and the better ones succeed.
I feel like you're arguing against
Also,
communists.
even if you're founding a company, like, you're not going to be making a difference alone for a while. After a while, like, you're going to have people working for you or with you, and that's not individual action anymore.
Understand that Mike Zuckerberg and his Jewish friends, when they started Facebook, there were 2 kids in not high school. There were 2 kids in university. That's what they were. They were not more.
Yeah,
they
but
had exactly the same opportunities as anyone else at that university.
Yeah, they were at that top university in the US.
Yeah.
With only rich kids in it. People who are already networked, already mostly relatively well off.
No. Zuckerberg is not a rich kid. His friend came from a Jewish family. He probably had some money. Zuckerberg
Probably.
has zero. He was on a scholarship.
Yeah, so he had people with money and connections believing or paying attention to his idea, and he was already at one of the top universities in the world.
I mean, again,
if you can't see how this is not about equality or power relations, then I can't help you.
I mean,
I can't help you, honestly.
Look, you can't change the world with a company, right? I mean, you can do that, definitely. I mean, you can say Martin Luther King, he was once a university student at X, Y, and Z. Okay, if the discussion here is about what venues you can take to change the world, we actually have a lot of venues in a democratic society. I don't think anyone here, right? I'm not sure who you're talking to, is like, oh, let's ban and remove the private market. You know, like, in fact, I think you'd be hard pressed to find anyone that argues that, right? But what about, let's say we make it easier for people from different sort of communities to start companies, right? Well, let's make it easier to found swarm companies, right? To form cooperative companies. Let's make it easier to build companies on the DAO stack, right?
Organization.
Yeah, I mean,
organization. That's what I'm working with. I would say 50% of my time.
Exactly. I mean, those are great fucking initiatives. But if they're gonna happen too, you gotta realize as well that if we don't fight politically at the same time, they're gonna get fucked over, right? And
yeah,
so we have to fight on every single level. We can't just fight on one alone.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there are always going to be challenges. But if you look at, for instance, the blockchain industry, which I'm a part of, I've been part of it for almost a decade. This wasn't people who were lobbying to Congress and say, stop printing money, stop bailing out bastards, stop bailing out people who are destroying our society, and stop tampering with the market. We didn't do that. I mean, there were a few people around Occupy Wall Street who also thought that enough is enough, but they were totally ineffective. They got a few news articles, and then somebody decided to say, fuck it, we'll build our own system. We build our system, we base it on blockchain, we make it honest, transparent, open source, so people can see it, and we can build something that is completely different from that bullshit government printing money scheme. And we know there's going to be another crisis coming around the corner. And by that time, we will have an alternative so people can choose which money they believe in. And look at the results. Today, governments are trying to regulate us because they can't stand the fucking competition. And this isn't something that was made up by some Godzillion. It was a few programmers who talked to other programmers, Eventually, there was an economist who came into the picture. And then the spiral grew. And many people have gotten rich on it, obviously. So,
are you seriously getting into
action.
Like trickle down here? Can we just move on? We had a ton of other links for tonight.
No, yeah, I'm not going into trickle down. What I'm saying is people acting to do a change is much more efficient in lobbying. And I would say the environmentalist movement is in many ways the same thing.
You know what
People
the big companies, the big tech companies are doing?
Last
They are
replies, then we
using
move on.
the concerted economic power for lobbying.
Yeah. And
They've
the
been
more
doing it for a
powerful you
while.
make the more
And
powerful you
they are
make the
doing
politicians.
it. So are you saying that the rest of us shouldn't be doing it? That we're if these companies are doing it.
The more powerful you make the politicians, the more powerful the tech giants are going to be in enforcing in lobbying the laws that they want.
I mean, yeah. Okay. I think we could discuss. I mean, I think the discussion about. I would love to hear at some point what sort of libertarian state you're dreaming of. You know, private courthouses and police forces, and how you're going to maintain all of these sort of things. But yeah,
I can actually.
No, we're not going to do that now. No. We will move on now, but we will take this debate. Okay, take 2 minutes. Okay, then we move on. All right.
No. I mean, I can definitely discuss how Dubai is a completely different system. Not that I would call it the libertarian paradise, by no means. Because as everybody knows, that there are lots of problems here from a libertarian perspective. But I would definitely say that it's a pause for thought. And we in Europe should definitely look closely at what's happening here. But anyway, I think we should discuss news.
Yeah, let's take a few more news before we had so many now. But it is what it is. Rene, you should get back to me when you have time for a debate, and we could actually lift you in on a more appropriate time, rather.
Yeah.
And we could talk about your libertarian dream world.
I sort of had time when I came back today.
Yeah, I understand.
For my meetings.
Anyhow, we're gonna move on with some more news, actually, and after this little hiatus, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna take this in, because this is good. We need a meme. We need to wash our eyes and ears. Oh shit! I reloaded that. I think. I love how goddamn. Yeah, welcome. This is Sweden and Denmark. All colors, all sexes, all orientations, all religions, all cultures, all abilities, all ages, all sizes, except the Danish. Love lives here. It's beautiful timing when the surveillance scandal was breaking loose. I love how pixelated it is. I wonder how deep fried this is. And let's see. Maya, which one? Is there any one in particular you want to make sure we lift?
I mean, I think you were going through, you went through you spent time on the vaccine decision.
Yeah, we already did
Swedish
that.
stream,
Yeah,
so maybe something different.
I'm still pissed. I mean, oh my god. Anyway.
Should we look at the election numbers?
Oh yeah, let's.
Nice and light, and probably won't invite as much of a debate.
Yeah, this is actually a really good site. It's great that I didn't know about this. Thank you for sharing it.
Yeah, there's a guy on Finnish Twitter who's involved in the project, so that's how I found out.
Yeah, it's nice. I'm gonna link it to you in the chat. This is a great place to just find out. Let's see that we wanna have a look at, say, Iceland, for instance, who's
so the
upcoming.
The reason we're looking at these, well, we want to expose everyone to EU stuff and what's going on in Europe politically, but the countries in particular we're looking at tonight, it's like, we'll see how many we get through, but it's 4 countries that have some kind of pirate activity and are having their parliamentary elections this year. So we thought we might as well take a look at how the pirates are doing there and maybe go through what we happen to know about the situation in those countries.
Yeah.
So which country is this?
This is Iceland, which has traditionally, or for some time now, had a pretty strong pirate party, and I think that's the green line that you can see, the very green one. The Greens, EFS.
Yes.
They're always.
And since this has an European focus, the EP groups or the affiliated EP groups for each party are used as the reference color, and they are mentioned in the brackets after the abbreviation for the actual party. That might throw you off if you're not familiar with the EP groups.
Yeah, you're normally gonna
Obviously,
see
Iceland
greens.
is not in the EU, but they are going, I guess, with the party's main. I assume they do have contact with EP groups since they are in the EEA and part of many other treaties. So they do actually interact with the EU. For instance, like Icelandic pirates have been meeting up with not just the pirate MEPs, but also at least some like Greens EFA people, and at least the whatever committee or group is assigned to deal with non-EU EEA members there. So that I'm not actually sure about the exact, if they have like a standard process for determining how to affiliate the non-EU country parties, but this is just my assumption.
Piratar.
Yeah.
Somewhat
Piratar,
in favor.
actually,
Piratar.
Wait. Yeah, there you have it. The
Somewhat in favor of EU regulation. Normally, it's not called center left. It's called pirate ideology. I don't know why they put center left there. Maybe they have a little bit different.
yeah, I think
Wikipedia calls it syncretic.
They are center left in Iceland.
Okay.
They're definitely
It's also
part of
it's also
the left movement.
quite relative often.
Yeah.
So,
but they're actually not a part of the government at this point, right?
something.
No, they've always.
They've never been. They've
never taken responsibility.
Something shared by the Icelandic and the Czech pirate parties is that like they may or may not be like center left in terms of their policies, but they have filled like this slot on the political spectrum, or in like a rough binary in their countries that was empty before they came up. Happens to fall.
Yeah, in both cases,
to the left of the center.
In Sweden, I would say the MP, Miljöpartiet, or the environmentalists, if you like, have occupied that position. In the Czech Republic, the environmentalist party was very defunct. So the Pirate Party managed to fill that gap.
I can't remember, the Czech have like 3 different levels of administration, I think. So, or like two, I can't remember, several, at least 2 chambers of parliament, and like, I think it's 3 different elections. So, in like the mid-tier one, I believe, they actually, like the most recent one, they basically devoured the entire Social Democrat Party in the country. So that definitely makes them center-left there.
Now the Social Democrats in the Czech Republic are weird party because...
Wait, in Iceland now.
Czechia?
Not Czech Republic.
Okay, sorry.
But we may get to Czech Republic, where I think actually it may be good that we have René here, who has a special relationship to that country particularly.
Yeah, we also have a person who's active he's actually on the board of the Finnish Pirates, who is Czech. He's been studying here and like founded a family here, so he's probably staying. But he still has like he still keeps in active contact with Czech Republic.
I didn't know the leader in Finland is called Smári McCarthy. Like, what a name! Hello.
Iceland.
Yes.
I mean, the leader is kind of like questionable anyway, because officially the Icelanders like to say that they don't have an official leader. They have like this board, and then they juggle, the duties of who goes on to represent them in interviews and panels and stuff.
That's that can be good and it can be horrible depending on how you manage that. But interesting though.
I mean, for the longest time they
I'm just
did get sort of like personified into Birgitta anyway, so
yeah,
like, but it's good that they at least like tried to resist the personification or like being associated with just like one talking head.
Yeah, I think it can actually be done good, but it's very hard because you need a symbol to gather around, because the current way that elections are being made, pretty much exclusively, is very much person based, and also a lot about how you feel about someone, and it's incredibly important. Which is obviously a little bit ridiculous, but that's just the way it is. But good. Maybe we should actually have a quick look at Czech Republic, right? Let's see. Here we are.
I mean, the reason why the Czech Republic is so interesting is that they're having elections this autumn.
Yeah, that's why we're looking at them. And there is actually...
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I guess at this point I'd understand if you were ignoring me entirely, but I think I did say that we are looking at these countries because they are having their legislative elections this year.
Yeah, we're gonna try.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we're gonna try to follow to those who might not
is Iceland having elections as well?
Yeah.
Yes.
And also
as is Norway and Germany.
Germany is going to be the really big one coming up, and it's all happening September, beginning of October this year. Is going to be a very, very, very important election month for pirates.
Yet another green line.
And this time
the rising one.
This time they're actually affiliated with the Green Zephyr. I mean, the pirate MEPs are a part of Green Zephyr,
right?
Like Julia was before them.
The important thing that people should take note here is that there are actually two green lines here, because they made a coalition.
There's another coalition as well.
The reason why you have this sort of space jump in the middle is that's when the coalition formed. So the party who is actually in the lead is the POS, which is, to paraphrase my Czech, Piratia a Starosti, which basically means pirates and mayors.
Of the pirates and a group of independents, or previously a group of independents. Still, at least like the sources I've seen, it's led by the pirates. So
yes,
I guess they're getting to dictate things, but that's brought them to like first place in the polls, which is extremely interesting. Like the elections are going to be really interesting.
The another interesting thing here is, and that's going to be the thing to watch, the black line.
It's the Nazis, right? Or is it?
SPD, which I would assume is the Social Democrats.
Oh, really?
SPD.
Like I remember like being told, I believe by actual text, that like the last legislative elections, the pirates came pretty much like the shared third place, was it, with the Nazis?
No.
Or like the far right party?
No. There's no far right party in the Czech Parliament. At least not in any meaningful definition of the word far right. No.
This is the Czech Social Democratic. I think, are they really?
I mean, you.
So wait, are you saying SPD is a Social Democratic Party?
Yes.
Because SPD, going by Google, gives us freedom and direct democracy. It's a hard Eurosceptic, anti-immigration, pro-direct democracy political party.
Okay, I could be wrong.
It's probably this as SPD is Svoboda a Primia Demokracji.
Okay, no, it's not the Social Democrats. It's definitely not the Social Democrats.
I think actually the Social Democrats, it's SD. Yeah, it's CSSD.
No. It's me that's sort of running around. This party is fairly new. 5th of May 2015, so it's 5 years in the making. If I read it pretty quickly, you could, I mean, calling it the neo-Nazi party is like, okay. But yeah, definitely a pro-nationalist party. For sure. And wow, how much did they get?
11.5. They've gone up a lot since July 2020.
Yeah, they are rising. What I assume is happening is that they are taking ANO votes.
Yeah, it's pretty clear. Pirate Party is definitely taking a bit of those votes.
Right-wing coalition is probably also taking those votes. But yeah.
What's Stan?
Since there was another coalition that got formed.
Yeah, that's true.
Stan is the alliance party with the
Pirates.
The Pirates. So Stan stands for Starosti. So that's the independent mayors.
Right. Those are the two ones that joined here and became pretty big.
Yes.
And then you have the
sort of
the left that has been pretty stable. I mean, slowly down. I mean, actually,
ODS is definitely not the left.
KSCM is the ODS is not. No, I was looking at KCM.
If I am correct, is sort of Moderaterna.
And what about the Spolu? This is a combination now of probably ODS.
So KSCM, the one that you're looking at now.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
That's.
Yeah.
But just. Yeah. That's the communists.
Yeah, that's the Communist Party. That's been going down for pretty stably for the last 2 years.
Yeah, but I mean they've been going down for about 70 years now. So.
Yeah. But nothing dramatic. But then you have actually an alliance that's been formed then between ODS and Spolu, right? No, ODS and KDU. It's the Christian Democrats, I guess, and the moderates.
It's like exactly. So it's like KD and Moderaterna in Sweden.
I mean, if they would get support from SPD, I think they would have majority.
No.
It's actually a little bit hard. No, not majority.
I mean, no. There isn't a single party here who is close to majority. The largest party here has less than 30%.
What, Maya? Do you know how the blocks look like? Are there any block politics in Czechia at all?
No, they are not. There was
I believe there aren't, since it's extremely fragmented. Like there's a lot of turnover in like just new groups popping up and old ones falling. It's way more fragmented than what we're used to in the Nordics, for instance.
So I mean, the thing is that the traditional parties that you're used to in Sweden or in Germany, I would say even in France, they're simply not there. They're simply not there. So, for instance, the Social Democrats, you'll be hard pressed to find them. In Sweden, they are like the largest party. They are the second largest. Well, they were the second largest party in Germany. Now it's been replaced by the Greens. So you have ANO, which is a very weird populist party. Some people would say
they basically have their own mini Trump, and the party is built around him. This is the impression I've got.
Sorry, yeah. So it's run by this weird ex Secret Service billionaire who basically managed to hijack a lot of factories during the privatization, and he is super corrupt, and he runs his own. He's in many ways a Czech Berlusconi. If you want to give his
political Trump.
No, I would say it's more like Bert Karlsson. I would definitely won't call him Donald Trump. But yeah, he's weird, babbish. Definitely.
Affiliated with some form of old power, may still present themselves as coming from outside the establishment, populist, corrupt. I mean, there is this
Berlusconi, though. Yeah,
has been where also, like, obviously the category existed before Trump. There's this, I mean, I'm sure you see the commonalities that, like, connect these two or three and many others. The basic hallmarks, maybe. That's what I was referring to. We actually had some news regarding this specific guy, which we probably won't be getting to tonight since we're running pretty late. But maybe next time.
We can
get into the specifics of the guy's corruption.
Yeah, he's a pretty special dude. Let's just say it like this.
He steals from everything, They had a very funny incident with how he managed to get EU funds to renovate his sort of private estate.
Yeah, he got EU funds. He embezzled EU funds for a lot of things. I mean, I guess we could bring the links up if we're going to talk.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because that's an important piece of news, and probably the ones.
Yeah, so there was a case. I believe it was the Czech pirates even who sort of started pursuing this. They brought it to the commission. This was before well before, at least several months, maybe half a year prior to the 2019 EU election. So I guess they were hoping that the commission they would get a commission to respond and maybe react before that, but they didn't. It was still stuck in the gears through the election. But now, after a couple of years, the commission audit has been finished, and it turns out that he did indeed he was indeed guilty of embezzling a shit ton of EU money. Like the Agrofert case, the agri-subsidies are the major one, I guess, but apparently there was other stuff as well. And in addition to finding him guilty of these things, the EU Commission also feels that there is no need to make him pay any of it back or suffer any repercussions at all, which is kind of illustrative of how what the system looks like right now. For context, though, like, this is my working theory or like hypothesis of what's going on with this, because like the the accusations or like the requests for investigation that was submitted, I think it was mostly around the Agrofert case, which means it was mostly about misuse and appropriation of agricultural subsidies. And the thing about agricultural subsidies, those account for around a third of the entire EU budget. So, and that's also why it's maybe a reason why it really doesn't, like, nothing there seems to budge. Like, it doesn't seem to react to public discussion ever, if there even is any public discussion, since like it's such a monolith, it's such a like a basic pillar of the entire union, that understandably the established powers are kind of reluctant to look too much into it, since I'm pretty confident in saying that some of these like former Soviet EU member states, like the politicians there aren't the only ones who are abusing the system. I mean, it's too much money, and it's too untransparent.
No, of course.
So this is like my current hypothesis of why they refuse to do anything about it and like take their time looking into any of these things, because if they actually start like taking a broader probe into it, there are going to be more heads on the plate than just Babish's.
Yeah, And I mean, the weird thing, just a kind of quick thing there. I mean, let's look at what precedent this says. So you're essentially saying, yeah, he's guilty, but yeah, we're not going to do anything about it. Like, we're not even going to claim some money back. Maybe we will not send. We might not send so much money there next time. That's essentially everything they're saying, and it's quite incredible because I mean, this is stealing taxpayer money, right? You know, straight up, right? This is stealing our common funds.
But I mean,
and it wasn't just like apparently there's been, I can't remember if it was it wasn't the audit, but there was also a study by the Greens FR, probably also initiated by the Pirates, but from earlier this year. I can link it on Discord. This was published. It's a blog post by the European Pirates. So it's not just Czechia. The report found the same kind of shit in Bulgaria, Hungary, Slovakia, and Romania as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure nobody looked in Italy.
Oh yeah, I mean it's. But I think that's really kind of the case. But it's so fucked up. I mean, the problem is what they're essentially saying is do whatever the fuck you want. As long as you're cheating, doing whatever you want in this particular area, we are not going to do anything about it.
And that's like, it's a funny precedent, but we had the other link. There's like this fresh, like another EU institution, apparently fairly freshly established, called the EPPO.
Yeah, let me go.
Like the prosecutor's office, I guess, who are launching an operation to look at the same case, I guess, or at least the same guy.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it would definitely be nice to put him behind bars.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the commission refuses to do it, but we still do have some hope. We have another institution looking into it. And obviously, the way these things go, especially if it's a fresh institution, it's going to take a while until we get like any real conclusions or even like more info about it. Like the way the audit into Babish took a couple of years. But still, maybe he'll face consequences. Like,
I mean, at least it didn't just end there. But I mean, the crazy thing is here that the commission, that there's just nothing being, and it's kind of it's straight up. It's like, yeah, he did it, but yeah, and we're not gonna do anything. I mean, that sort of admission, too, open admission, is one of the reasons why we need to cover EU more. I mean, it's absolutely mind-blowing to a certain extent, you know, like this I don't know how you can admit.
None of this is being reported, and like at least when in Finland they talk about the EU, like the most we've heard about the EU this year has been the stimulus package, and there's a lot of talk about like millions of euros and like the amount of money going in and out. Like, how much are we benefiting of this? Are we like a net payer or a net receiver? And
I think it's super important to talk about,
like, this is our quotation marks, our tax money as well, and nobody's paying any attention.
But I mean, of course you should be looking at the new subsidies that are coming from the EU as a result of the corona pandemic. First of all,
I'm not saying it's a bad thing that they are discussing it. Like,
it's super important. I mean, it's like
to the extent that they are paying attention to the EU, they are talking about the millions of euros. But then there are these millions of euros that they don't seem to give a flying fuck about. Like, they seem to only care about what's going in and what's coming out, but they don't care about like what we potentially are getting out that is actually illicit.
I mean, if it's coming, like, you could put it like this: if there's X million coming back to Finland, people will be like, "Oh yeah, it's great," and it turns out those fucking millions are going straight down the drain into pure corruption. I mean, that's. But
please take a look at the amounts.
I mean, that's not
obviously. Yeah, the stimulus package is super important because it's like 3 more zeros.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, all of these things are obviously important, but right now, this is the kind of thing. I mean, this is one part of this particular dude. If we're gonna go into the stimulus package, we're gonna get stuck. But I mean, that's just the last thing I've heard anything about EU in media was that time, and that's kind of the point. This sort of thing, it just doesn't. I mean, this is like open admission of corruption, right? I mean, there's no other way, and also of no punishment for corruption, and it really is something that we should be hard on. Nice. No, but I mean, we should. This is something that should definitely be talked about. It needs to be lifted, because also if there is no accountability for anything, then obviously these things can continue to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
And there needs to be accountability on many levels. You know, unfortunately, the European Union doesn't really produce any form of product that we can not buy. We simply have only our words, media, and our vote to change this, but talking about it is a beginning, and holding media accountable.
Yeah, there is a question in the chat. Media in Sweden are talking more about US politics than EU politics. Is that the same in Finland? Yes, it is for in many respects the same in Finland, and that's kind of what we started this stream with, or one of the main motivations for restarting the PTV Global or PTV International project was that since most of the mainstream media and most of what we're being exposed to online and social media is all about the US. Like culturally, politically, a lot of people nowadays seem to know more about like US domestic politics than what's going on in their own country or let alone the neighboring countries. So yeah, that's exactly why we are doing this shit.
Yeah. I mean, imagine this being Ted Cruz, right? Or some Democratic senator, say Elizabeth Warren, who's embezzled millions of funds, or Donald Trump, but he's a little bit too big. He's not the leader of EU.
Like our media reports this kind of thing from the US.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge thing. Even in our media, right?
Mess up.
If Ted Cruz doesn't go back to Texas, that's a huge thing. Or if Elizabeth Warren isn't from this thing. And here we're talking embezzlement for a political figure that should be as important as those figures, you know, relatively, who is not at all being lifted or talked about.
Huh?
Hello! Do we have some new weird guest? We're gonna need to move up. Hey! Hey, Katson. We're streaming at this point.
Yeah, what's up?
Hi. I'm gonna mute you, dude. Right. But I mean, that was honestly the last news for tonight.
Yeah, we had some more, but we got derailed.
Yeah,
maybe we can get we can schedule like an actual debate so Renee gets to go off.
Yeah.
But if there's something like preferably EU or at least like non-US related news or topics, please drop them on the PTV Global channel in the Discord so we can pick them up. And maybe if there's something you really want to like debate or bring up or come discuss, like maybe also give us an advance warning so we can prepare for that.
Yeah, and I will make sure that we're also sitting in the correct channel. It's my little bit laziness, but it is what it is. It's also these first times, right? We'll iterate to something that works, and we'll make sure we plan things out. Now, I have the channel here, PTV Global. Thank you, by the way, Renee. But post news, EU news that you want us to talk about. I mean, they can be US news too. They can be global news. They can be, but with an EU focus, particularly these sort of things. And let's at least try, and give us feedback as well. What you think would be interesting to talk about, like what may be relevant or not in this type of context. Because Yeah, it's
I mean,
underreported
obviously,
as hell.
What happens in the US matters for us. Like, we should, like, unfortunately, all of us have to pay attention what the US is up to. But, like, the thought here is that we do tend to hear more of that. Or sometimes, not sure if it's still enough, but, like, we tend to hear more of that than of anything that goes on in Europe or the EU, especially in terms of politics.
Yeah, I mean, we hear more about AOC's tweets or this and this and that than this fucking corruption, and this is huge. This is massive corruption. I mean, it's actually a little bit
AOC
ridiculous.
is much more entertaining than Babish. That's the thing, you know. Babish
but it is the work of the media as well.
Yeah, that's another discussion. Like, the US has this like 24-hour news cycle that's been like geared up, and it's been like picking up speed, and like they're being like, this is something that they've been building, and like that's been going on for decades now. Like, it's we don't have the same kind of, you know, media ecosystem yet. So, and also we are
only that, but
also all on US platforms. We are all like, we all living in the Anglosphere, not just America, but the Anglosphere. So that's why we are getting all this US shit. Their media ecosystem is like running at a far higher gear than anything we have here, and we are on their platforms. Like, those are two.
It's not the platform;
reasons.
it's the language. I mean, the Babish thing is big news in Czechia or the Czech Republic, but how many people here speak Czech? Nobody.
Yeah.
So there's not a single news article.
I studied
language.
I've studied linguistics, so we can definitely also go into that if you're interested in discussing the implications of language or language for in terms of like media and policy.
So the reason why you hear about Trump is because I mean, we are as affected by China as we are by America, I would say. But you don't hear very much about China because nobody here speaks Mandarin.
Media has been improving in those terms, but like tiny bit.
I mean, naturally, you're not going to get the same number of... obviously, the language barrier is something that isolates local news, where we can read and understand local news in Reno. That's never going to happen.
There are some really interesting questions there to be explored. Like, one possible like reason that's been hypothesized as like contributing factor to the resilience or like the resistance that Finland has for disinformation campaigns by the great powers is that like our language isn't just like the language technology isn't at a similar level as it is for English, and there are obvious reasons for that, but still like that's the reason that you can't just like flood like programmatically flood our channels with.
It's harder to make a Finnish bot.
Yep.
It's hard to make a Finnish bot, basically.
Yeah. Well, it's significantly harder, and to do it in a way that actually you can't tell at first glance that it's a bot. It will have to have some kind of a minimal level of like plausibility, like both in terms of language and like it wouldn't even be enough to have it be like intelligible Finnish. It would have to seem like something that an actual person would say, and like that's definitely not something we're at currently, since at least in English, like the world, there are probably more ESL speakers, like English as second language speakers in the world, than native speakers. So like English, anything goes. Like people don't like clock weird language, like they don't clock like nobody talks like that as easily as they might for another language, because it's a norm. Like bad English, or linguistics brain says like there is no bad English. Like we shouldn't be making those kinds of judgments, but we can make the kind of judgment like, could an actual person write like this? Do people actually write or speak like this? that's kind of like, have we ever heard someone use language like this? That's the kind of judgment we can do. So like sort of like non-textbook English or like non-native speaker English is pretty much maybe up there with like Chinese and Chinese as or like Mandarin Chinese as the most spoken language, so to say, in the world.
Yes,
I told you I could go on about.
yeah, yeah, but it's an interesting topic, particularly from I think from a bot point of view, and development, like how you can actually how that matters for languages.
I find it actually much more interesting to discuss it from a democratic point of view, because I think that the reflections that you have sort of brought up here is something which at least I've been thinking about for a very long time, that the European Union is a organization which consists of very many language spheres, which means that people are living in, I would say, a lot of bubbles that are really, really isolated from each other. And which are actually much more connected to, say, the American bubble than they are to each other. And yet you have this single political entity who attempts to rule them. So the opportunity for shall I call it a divergence between the people in the bubble and the rulers is obvious, right? I mean, we don't have a single European discourse.
Nope.
Where we all debate the same topics. So we have perhaps 15 different discourses that are going on.
Yeah, we have a very little like language is right up there with like technology on the list of things that like massively affect our everyday life, and like politics, for instance, and democracy, that we really don't like actually explicitly discuss all that much. And when it does get discussed, it's always the same like entry level shit like that some lone columnist brings up and everyone gets upset about, because everyone has opinions about language and very few people have actually like given much thought to language. So yeah, we definitely should have more talk about this.
That's why we're building this.
Another interesting thing is that, the EU as an institution, it works in, it has the official languages. Each country, each member gets to bring like one language. And obviously, very understandably, I'm not judging, they tend to bring their national language, like we are a continent of a nation state. So they bring their national language. Which makes
it very funny when England leaves, right?
Yeah, that makes it very funny, and it also means that despite their like some of the Eastern member states having like significant Russian minorities, and there is not a single country that sort of brought up a Russian as its official choice. Again, a very understandable choice, especially from former Soviet countries. But that means that the EU, for the most part, as an institution, by default, does not provide any information. It doesn't release anything in Russian. And then we wonder why they are winning the information war on some fronts. Like, I've been trying to come up with like who I should like bring this to, or who I should ask for like takes on this, because it sure seems like something that could be relevant to this whole like hybrid panic that's been going on for the past 10 years.
Yeah, I mean it definitely I mean, in the information war, if you say it matters, but even here, even locally, like perhaps even more importantly, just the information out to its own citizens.
And obviously it's not just Russian, like it's not just the Russian sizable Russian minorities, it's just like Russian speakers living elsewhere in the EU, and like any language minority at all that doesn't have to happen to have its language as a majority language or an official language in its country. Like, at least like in Western Europe, there are these small multilingual countries. Like even if you're in the relative minority, your language, there's a good chance that your language is an official one in the EU thanks to some other country. But there are so many minority languages that don't have the same luxury. And that's also a massive problem in terms of democracy. And there have been initiatives to make it better, or at least like provide more resources, improve the kinds of resources that these minority languages and like their advocates could use. But the latest that I'm aware of those was, I think it failed. Like it was this citizens initiative, and it got the signatures, but it was ruined because it was, I think, an initiative by either the Hungarians or the Romanians. Like they have they probably have some kind of exchange, like old areas or something, so that they have like culturally or linguistically Hungary has like they have these areas, flipped areas in terms of culture and language, and
it's called Transylvania,
yeah, and obviously like there are examples of this kind of thing elsewhere in Europe as well, and it sort of turned like it was geopolitically motivated by was it Hungary that initiated it, or like sort of provided resources for the initiative, but and the reason it basically failed, like an initiative that could have benefited many other minority languages, ones that don't have like nation state backing, it got like stalled. The initiative got stalled because of those two countries squabbling. So yeah.
Yeah,
it's where we're at.
Yeah, that's actually not a bad. This is an implication that we should perhaps take up in a particular episode. I think this can be really interesting, and it's important. But for tonight, my dear friends, it's almost 11:30. It's time for all the little bots to sleep. You've been up for way too long now. Particularly you, Kenta Clawfinger. You need to go sleep, or waifu Otto will miss you. As we said, remember to give us some feedback, give us some links, give us anything you can at this moment as we're iterating for the show. Let us know. And tomorrow, what's going to happen tomorrow? Tomorrow, we are actually going to have Syndikalisterna here from 7 o'clock. And then after that, we're going to have Skapar-stream. We're going to do things together. That's what's up. Sleep tight, everyone. Thank you, Maja. Thanks, René.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Good night.
PTV. Oberoende. Piratistisk media. Skapad och finansierad av tittarna.